welcome to the Features Edge. I am Jim Iuorio. That's Bob Iaccino. That's Mike Arnold. It's the first Friday of every month. He is the chief strategist for Path Trading Partners, and he basically directs almost all my investments at this point in time. And I appreciate that, Mike. You've made me some good money. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Independence Arc Farm. We complain about big food conglomerates controlling the food supply. There is something we can do, and that's to patronize small independent operators. Contact Marco at Independence Arc. Secondly, the American Gold Exchange. For all those of you who saw my speech in New Orleans last month, yeah, I talked about owning physical gold and physical silver. It seems like it's a good idea right now, considering we're spending money like drunken sailors and silver's going through the freaking roof. And our favorite sponsor, unfilteredinvestor.com, which features these two on either side of me talking about portfolio construction and trading. But I've had way too much caffeine, Bobby. Like literally my hand is going like this. But anyway, so you asked the first question while I try to get cool.
The funny thing is I've only drank with you a couple of times. This is very similar to drunk, Jim.
Yeah, it is very talkative, very chatty, bouncy, a little bouncy.
I love it.
Yes. So what are we going to start with? We're going to start with S&P, right?
Hey, can we actually, if you guys don't mind,
S&P.
what do you got on the screen, Mike? Do you mind going to Bitcoin? I'm super interested if there's any price action signs. And I know Mike covers this all the time on the live stream, which is the Path Trading Partners live stream. That Path Trading Partners is me and Mike, but I'm never on the live stream. It's 100% Mike. It's also 100% free. So you guys should subscribe and watch it on YouTube. But Mike, what are you seeing here?
We're really close to a potential double bottom on a daily basis. That does not mean the bottom is necessarily in, because it would have to trigger. I mean, we're really close. It technically has to get below 83,683.95. Which makes the peak from Friday the 28th. So last Friday, Black
What's
Friday,
that peak?
that peak is 93,161.86.
Okay.
That would trigger a bounce pattern. We have the overhead. This is a weekly chart. We have the overhead rotation zone. If this were, I'm making an assumption here that it's going to become a double. Let me just see where this would take us. It could take us, if I can make the right click, it could take us just back into the weekly rotation zone. Again, we're still bearish. If we take out the lows from Friday the 21st, then it's a pretty quick trip down. You can see the whole run up from the last major sell-off in 22 through the top in October of this year. The 50% harmonic level, the prior major breakout level, and the 25% harmonic projection are all right around the 69 to 71,000 area. So if we do break the lows from a couple weeks ago, my two targets are 74,800 and then right around 70,000, somewhere right in there for the next key level of support, where I'd start looking for another substantial bottoming pattern. If this turns into a double and it does trigger, we're looking, the major area I'll be watching is right around about 97,500, all the way potentially back up to maybe 103, but probably back to the 100,000, which could turn into.
I got to interrupt for 1 second just to make sure some of the new watchers here. A double bottom that triggers means it's bullish. At the bottom held, it's within 25% of the other, and then it trades above the middle high and settles there. That's a bullish pattern. That's something that confused me before, and now I speak Mike Arnold now. Sorry about that, Mike. Go.
No, and because, let me stress this again, people get confused also. They hear me say there's a potential double bottom. It may never trigger. It needs a close above $93,162 roughly to trigger. Just because it's a potential setup does not just mean you go buy Bitcoin, because the trend is still down on the daily basis. The trend is still down on the weekly basis. It needs some kind of pattern to trigger, and that's the only potential pattern That is at the time of this live broadcast that I'm watching.
Am I right?
Bobby, is there a level that you think companies like MicroStrategies pops into my head starts to flip over and capsize, and it adds to the selling? You know, their stock price has been hammered. That guy's a freaking idiot for letting everybody think that it's a safe bet to do a leveraged Bitcoin play, and it really kind of pisses me off. And I know you know Michael Saylor, and I'm sure he's a good guy and a smart guy, but that was irresponsible. But can you add anything to that?
Yeah, he seems to be a good person. Um, Let me rephrase that. I mean, he's been involved in things before that some people kind of call him out on. I don't know him that way. He seems to honestly believe what he's saying. But I think it's a lot lower before he starts to capitulate assets. I think it's got to be somewhere in this like $61,000 range for
Okay.
Bitcoin. But it is. Do you guys see this as the most dramatic sell-off we've had since like the 2021, 2022
Well, here's what I
sell-off?
think is that it doesn't matter the magnitude of the sell-off in comparison, but it does matter the how linked it is with the Nasdaq
Yeah.
and the actual market cap that it got to. Cryptos in general were 4.2 trillion market cap. So it when it had those sell-offs in the past, I don't think it was an important enough asset. The asset itself gained importance. So this then is the most important and most significant sell-off. Does that make sense?
It does, and the reason I wanna look at Bitcoin first is, Jim, I wanted to ask you a question because the selling continues, and, again, Mike's got a weekly chart up here, so you're seeing how many is that, Mike? 5 out of 6 weeks or 6 out of 7 weeks lower,
Getting
somewhere in
hammered.
that particular it looks like it's 5 out of 6 weeks lower, and it looks like it's 7 out of 9 weeks lower, if I'm seeing that right. So, Jim, a couple of weeks ago, as the, lead-in piece to the Unfiltered Investor newsletter, you wrote how Bitcoin dragged the NASDAQ down or dragged stocks down for the first time.
Mhm.
Do you think it's going to continue to do that? Or do you think there had to be sort of like a capitulation of people raising money because of their Bitcoin losses and now
No,
it's sort of detached?
yeah, now, and I in that piece, I also said that at some point in time, the market and Bitcoin itself will forget what the original reason was that it was selling, and just selling begets selling, and then I think it will decouple from the Nasdaq. So
Okay.
I think that it did. I think that Nasdaq could have followed it down more, except for two things. The Fed flipped a little bit. They trotted some people out saying, no, we're still going to ease. But way more importantly, was the story about Google and the TPU chips that changed the focus from NVIDIA just being the total bell cow of the move to Google being part of it too. So that kind of put through a lifeline to the Nasdaq, while Bitcoin started to continue lower, accelerate lower. Really, does any of that make sense, or is that just kind of trader talk, mumbo jumbo, talking head shit?
No, I like it. Mike, can you quickly go over again? Um, I just want to repeat this. I was going to ask Mike to say it, but I know it as well. So I'm just going to say that it's starting to form a double bottom doesn't even mean that it's a confirmed double bottom yet. It only becomes, people have to understand the difference, between a double top and two tops and a double bottom and two bottoms. They actually are different things when you're talking about technical analysis. So, Mike, in order for it to be a confirmed double bottom, what has to happen? And a triggered double bottom, what are the difference between the two?
Confirmed, it would have to trade any trade above the peak confirms the double. So on a daily basis, any trade above the peak of 93,162 would confirm it. Something can confirm without ever triggering it. The trigger would need to follow through close. It doesn't have to be the same day. It can be at any point in the future once the pattern's been confirmed, as long as the pattern does not become invalidated.
But the double bottom itself is formed by what percentages of those two bottoms? How
The
close
two
do they have to be?
within 25% of each other were really close. So it's technically not a double bottom pattern until it trades below 83,684 roughly.
All it has to do is trade there.
Trade. It does not have to close below there. You just have to get these bottoms within 25%. And this bottom can even extend. It can go beyond the prior
Oh
low.
yeah, I forgot about that. Right.
It
Yeah.
could extend all the way down before it invalidates the pattern. It could extend theoretically all the way down to 77,365 area roughly without invalidating the potential pattern. So it comes in a range here. It technically hasn't entered that range. We missed it today by like
A little under
120
200.
bucks roughly.
Yeah.
So could we easily push down there tomorrow? That's the only thing I'm watching. If we did not make that double bottom and we still traded above the peak from last Friday, it could still be a bounce play. We just don't use the same targets. And the major target would be back to roughly the same area, that 100,000, 101, 101,000. Key interesting thing to note, I'll also show you, since the recovery, when we got back above the 50-week moving average in October of 23, all the sell-offs have caught. And we judge things not by a low because it's really a closing basis. So this would be closing basis on a weekly pattern since it's a weekly 50 exponential moving average. Every correction until this last one caught on the 50-week moving average and we got some kind of reversal signals. We caught on the beginning of November. You can see we bounced off it and closed above it, but then the following week we dropped below it and closed below it, and we've continued down. So in order for me to get to even consider getting more bullish besides a bounce play, we'd have to get a close above the 50-week moving average, and then roughly, because I won't be on until on Futures Edge until I guess January, roughly we're looking to regain full bullish mode is around 109,000 that a rally would have to close back above to trip the probabilities that we could see a retest of the high area. So that is a long way off. Does not mean you can't bounce, but to trigger the probability shift again is roughly 109,000. So any bounce that falls short of there is still in bearish mode.
Probably a good time to tell people that Mike will be on our Wednesday live show too. So, if there's anything's changed since then, Mike will be able to tell you in a couple days. After that, you got to wait till January. Real
Right.
quick.
Well, we had to bump the other guest just because there's so much shit going on
Yeah.
that we need to talk technical. Sorry about that. Anyway, go on.
That's
Yeah.
okay. Do you want to switch to NASDAQ since that's what we were talking about the relationship with?
Hell yeah.
NASDAQ. Let me just scroll up there. There we go. All right. Kit, this is the power of learning. Even if you're not a longer term or a shorter term trader, this is the power of learning doubles. We had this morning, I'm just going to point something out. This is already ended, so the trade is over. Here was the double bottom.
What time frame is that,
It
Mike?
was within 25% from the low to the peak to the lows. It then proceeded to move up, confirm, and close on the same bar. And this is a 1 hour chart for simplification. It was valid even on a 15-minute chart. And you see here, we dipped back down a couple times. It didn't cancel the pattern out. And then it went up and reached all three targets before making a little double top and then traded back down. So the power, if you're going to learn, and the people say technical analysis mumbo jumbo, if you follow it through, you can get pretty good probabilities approaching 70% on these things that once you learn how to trade them and do your own research into them, they are very, very powerful. I just wanted to point that out because that's a pattern that played out this morning on a shorter term basis.
Love it.
So, NASDAQ. Last week in the Unfiltered Investor, we actually put out a couple things. We had a daily buy signal on a break above the prior Friday's close, which needed a follow through close to hold it. We got that signal on Monday. We also noted, we also put out that if it closed above last week's high on a weekly basis, it would trigger a %B buy signal. You also see how we came back down into the rotation zone, right to the bottom of the rotation zone, did not close below it on a weekly basis and rotated back up. Does that mean the coast is clear? Well, on the daily basis, we've also closed above a key declining trend line and closed above the 62.5 harmonic. So I am still watching. We're still moving up stops from the especially the daily percent B buy signal that turned into a weekly one. Is it guaranteed? No, but we have the probabilities in our favor that we can, at least in the NASDAQ, the probabilities have shifted that we should test 25,775 and then possibly 26,087 on a continued rally. Does it guarantee we go to new highs? No, it doesn't. We could stall out up here, but we should still see probabilities that we move higher unless we drop back down and we close below about 24,500. If we were to close back below 24,500, the probabilities become invalidated that we will continue to move higher.
There's a question in the chat here before we go on, Mike, to Jim. So, Jim, I'm going to read it to you. It's from Jacob. It looks like Jacob Pladson, 8533. He says, Jim, I know we talk about S&P being potentially overvalued or in a bubble. Do people just view investing broadly in the market as a dollar debasement trade, similar to the way you guys view gold? I heard about the podcast through your appearance on Jova Klavic's Agriculture Premium Channel Standard Grain.
Thank you, Jacob. That's a great question. I think the answer to that is absolutely yes, to a certain degree. I think there are still, investment opportunities out there that are just about making profit and speculating. But I do think if you have all your money in dollars, as they keep beating the shit out of it, you are losing money. So yeah, everything has changed where it used to be much more fun. Now we're just kicking and screaming to keep ourselves out of the poorhouse. You think that effectively answers it, Bobby?
I do. And one other thing, the dollar debasement trade, I should say dollar debasement in general, is the root cause of inflation, right?
Right.
And inflation is actually inverted. It has an inverse correlation. No, I'm sorry. It has a positive correlation to equities. So
Yeah.
when you see inflation, you're generally getting hard assets that have a greater dollar value, which is kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
you're looking at the price of your house goes up along with the price of eggs.
No.
So same thing
Yeah.
happens in the stock market until the Fed starts fighting it. And
Right.
that's the problem
And
with
to be clear on,
stocks, the dollar
yeah.
debasement trade.
Right. And so my dollar debasement portfolio, as I've said the whole time, stocks have been part of that, but it's gold, silver, platinum, Bitcoin, and stocks, because that's all part of the trade. Good question,
Mike,
Jacob.
feel free to chime in if you have any opinion on that.
Well,
And he didn't chime in.
I
Let's
tend
move
to
on.
do stuff off charts, so we'll just when we get we'll
Like, no, I got nothing for you on that.
no,
All right, you want to move on to
we
the
are in the dollar basement trade. Although we're gonna see, I think we're gonna see the dollar could be interesting coming
we
up.
have to
By the
do
way,
the
let's
rest
talk
of
about
the
the dollar
equities.
index.
Yeah,
The
let's go
dollar
to
I
the
index
dollar
is
understand.
index.
not
Yeah,
part
the
of the dollar
dollar's a
trade, in my
basement
opinion.
trade,
Yeah.
but some things could shift, and that could actually we could get some interesting future moves that change the outlook in the with it sometime in the beginning of 2026, I think.
All right.
Let's move on to the dollar then. You want
Yeah,
to?
let's move on to dollar because I just got a question via text. I was looking over here, and this person says, it's actually John. This person says, based on what you talked about with doubles, do we have a double top on the daily dollar
By the way, I
index?
was going to ask that same. I saw the same thing you saw, John. That's funny. Yeah. For the NAS, he's talking about, right?
No, he's talking about the dollar index.
Oh, forget about it then.
Dollar index, we have a couple patterns.
Mhm.
Yes, in the short term, we do have a potential double top. It needs a trade below 98,602 to confirm and a close below that same level on a daily basis to trigger. That then would be a pullback trade. What's interesting on the weekly basis, we have confirmed a massive double bottom. So
Yeah.
it's confirmed and triggered. I should say it was confirmed at the beginning of November and it was triggered 2 weeks ago. Now the 50-week EMA is straight overhead, and we've seen some pullback reaction. We're getting the first cross of weekly rotation zone, and we've so far held. Now, if this double top triggers, does it invalidate the massive weekly double bottom? Not unless we drop below and close below 97.30. We'd have now the final target is interesting 97.21, but that does not mean you'd have to close below that level. So if this were to trigger and hasn't triggered yet, it hasn't even confirmed yet, I'd be watching for a full pullback. Personally, I'm looking for, if it does trigger, I'm keeping an eye on the 97.90 to 98 area for another potential bounce pattern, which is the first target area, and the 50% harmonic from the most recent lows in September to the highs 2 Fridays ago. So that would be the key level I'd be watching, because it does not invalidate this huge double bottom again, unless it closes below that 97.30 area. But yes, that is a valid potential double top within an already confirmed and triggered massive weekly double bottom.
So what's the trade here?
What's the trade here? I'm staying looking for pullbacks. Even if we triggered a double top, I'm using it for pullback levels.
Got it.
Or looking for more setups to then potentially get long. The only way I invalidate the long thesis, and this is a massive pattern, this could take weeks and months to play out. So unless this pattern's invalidated, I will be looking for pullback levels to establish long dollar positions.
Makes sense. Bobby, what do you want to move to?
I'll ask Mike, do we need to go back to the S&P, the Russell, or the Dow, or are they both sort of in the same situation from NASDAQ?
The S&P, let's look at the S&P from a bigger perspective. There was also a little mini double bottom pattern in the S&P earlier, played out to the targets. Just wanted to point that out again for people.
Beautiful, yeah.
Learn a pattern. You don't need a bunch of them. You can do 1 or 2 key patterns and master them, and they're valid on a bunch of different time frames. That's what's nice about these patterns. On the bigger time frame with the S&P, we have technically entered potential double top territory. Do not freak out that this may never trigger. It may never, but it's always good to know. And these targets will probably change to the downside. That's why you got to keep tuning in. But watch the lows from mid-November in the S&P. There's not one in the NASDAQ yet, but in the S&P, the low of 65.25 is very key. Should we reverse, should something out of nowhere happen, and I know December's bullish, it's a 70-something percent, 73% chance it will end up higher in December, fine.
That's the odds, really? 73% of the time? That's the best month, right?
It's the best month of the year. I think it's 73. It's right around that level. So if I'm off by 1%, don't shoot me. I don't think it's going to matter, though, if it's 72 or 74. It's in the same ballpark. However, if something were to happen, or if this pattern remains intact into January, I am keeping a very close eye. I have alerts set at 65.25. This bottom point's not going to change, so you can set an alert there. That would then trigger a potential bigger pullback, which would sort of freak a lot of people out.
Sure would, yeah.
However,
here's the important part.
Potential. It may become invalidated. We might end up in just a horizontal trading pattern. There's a bunch of other things that could invalidate this pattern. Hey, if the market continues higher and gets above about 7,055, the pattern's off the table. Then you don't even have to worry about that level anymore. But that's where the downside risk occurs. Other than that, in the S&P, same thing. We triggered the percent B buy on a daily basis, turning into the percent B buy on a weekly basis, and we closed above the 62.5 harmonic. We've already ticked off the 75% harmonic. Now the next magnet price, interesting enough, it's roughly in the same area as the Wednesday the 12th high, is 6,900. If it does get up there and then we triggered that potential massive double, that's even a higher probability double, by the way. So I'm really focusing on this 6,900 level in the short term.
Makes sense. Bobby, what do you got?
Do we We have to talk about gold, obviously, because it's going in the inverse of Bitcoin. So we have to talk about it and show why it's doing that from a technical perspective and what might be setting up. I mean, I see something, but go ahead, Mike.
Gold? I
Yeah.
mean, again, let's start on the weekly. So far, it's been hugging the top of the weekly rotation zone. Any dip just below the weekly 8 EMA, I've been looking for buy setups. The trend is still up. Interesting enough, this now technical, even with this spike, because that spike did not get above the 75% harmonic. This is potential double top territory again. May never trigger, but it's just something if you're in it long term. Hold on, let me just change this to the double. Long term, if you've been riding gold all the way up, because this could trigger and be out of the way of the weekly rotation zone, that could start the bigger pullback in gold. So
Can you
I
say
know
it
where
one more time? What triggers and what prices make it trigger? Because I'm
the,
long up to my
the
freaking eyeballs
trigger
in this metal.
is 3901. So just remember 3900.
Yeah.
If we were to, before this pattern's invalidated, if we were to close below 3,900 on a weekly basis, you'd have a weekly double top. If gold keeps climbing, the pattern's only invalidated if we get above 45.22. If we get above 45.22, the pattern's invalidated. Other than that, I have alerts and stops set on close below 3901 for longer term positions, because that could theoretically take us. Let me try to get those appearing on the other. Let's do all intervals.
So that's a double bottom a double top on a monthly there. Oh no, that's the monthly.
No, but I'm saying that could take us back. We have not gone anywhere into the monthly rotation zone since we broke out in October of 23. You see
Right.
here how
Yep.
we've been just climbing above it. That's the pattern that could take us back into the monthly rotation zone. So that's why, at least for intermediate term stops, I know why that level's key. Until that happens, if it ever does happen, the trend is up. Even pullbacks to roughly 4,100. Hey, that's the 8 EMA on the weekly. I start looking for daily buy signals, and we had a little mini double bottom. We rolled, by the way, last week. So if you see here, here's the Feb contract. And there's another one. Let me take off the blue lines real quick. This qualified as a double bottom, this right here, because these bottoms were in the move that started here. Then this one dropped within that 25% of this low, and then we closed above, and you see hit all the targets, and today spiked above the final target and reversed. Does this mean the move has to be over? No, that pattern is over. I will still watch for any pullback plays to re-establish or short-term long positions, because the magnet prices are 43.08 based off the probabilities, and then 43.70. So it's still, everything's going up. I just want to point out the longer term patterns, because it's always good to know, especially for people. I know you've been a long term gold bull, as have I, but I need to know where, hey, if something shifts in the gold market, where are the trigger points that could signify we might get that bigger pullback, which has not happened. Well, these pullbacks have been very minor. So that's the only reason I'm mentioning that, not to scare people, but know where the possible trigger points are that could signify a drastic shift in gold.
Okay. Do you want to go to a name like Google?
Yeah.
And then maybe we go back to silver. I mean, silver's grabbing so many headlines that I'm sure people want to talk about it a bit.
We just got out of a long trade that we've been in Google for a while. Hit all three of our targets in the newsletter, so this is a good one.
Yeah, perfect. Now what, Mike?
And Google, well, interesting enough, it just triggered a minor double top pattern against the rotation zone. When we're like this, I just watch for pullbacks, because the technical I do not go short on these patterns, because it's been super bull mode. I just use the targets to watch for potential buy setups as we complete the targets. And we really do, by going to the full aggressive targets, it's for a full, not the gap fill to a close, but a gap fill to where we left behind a key reversal bearish open bar. You can see it right here. So I'm patiently watching for a potential pullback in Google out of very overbought conditions with daily cycles coming down into the daily rotation zone. I will start to continue to look for buying opportunities back into Google as we pull back and pause. Would love to see tomorrow, actually, if we did something like take out today's high and close above it tomorrow, that's a very aggressive percent B buy setup. That's the only bullish setup I have on the chart right now. That may not happen. We might continue to pull back tomorrow. Again, we'd have to break above today's high, and it only triggers if it follows through with a close for tomorrow only. If the pullbacks continue, I'm looking around 310. The two major areas I'm looking at are 310 for another potential bottoming pattern, and then 304.75 to 305 as the next potential area for a bottoming pattern.
Got it. Bobby?
Tesla is one that we took a long trade in the newsletter today on the open, basically. And so I want to kind of go through that one as well, because it looks like it's making money so far. Doesn't mean it's going to. Might be a loser. We just got in it, but just wanted to point that out. So to those of you that
The
aren't,
trade's a loser. The trade's a loser. People are saying, everybody's saying,
everybody
trade could be a
says it could be a
loser.
loser. I never make losers. I don't know why they would say that. We do the best trades
But
ever.
I just got
Everyone
a phone
talks
call
about it.
today.
But
I
anyway,
said, what to trade was. I'm trying. I'm working on it.
you're doing good, man.
I
No,
think
I'm
I'm
saying
doing better. I honestly do. Yeah.
we got into Tesla on the open. So for those of you that aren't subscribing to the newsletter, you haven't missed too much yet if you want to join us on that. But go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, that triggered last Friday.
We got
It
in this
triggered a
morning on the
double
open.
bottom pattern.
The newsletter, I should say, got in this morning on the open. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, which was a nice gap. So you even got a better entry, and there are targets of 451, just roughly 451, technically 451.25, then roughly about 462, and then if it's 471 for the final target. If Tesla were, because you got to know where your invalidation point, if it closes back below 400, it's done. The pattern would be a failed pattern. They have to close below 400 or trade below approximately 394.25. Either of those things were to happen, it would be a loser. As you can say it now, you can say it again.
Love it.
I don't have an accent like that.
By the way, we should have done Tesla earlier in the show. I just picked up my app. I was gonna like jump on in this trade because I didn't get in it. I should have read that part of the newsletter. I'm just kidding. I did read that part, but I was gonna get it now, and it's 304.
Hey,
We
it
are
could be a
closed.
By the
loser.
way,
I mean,
this is not something that that does not mean Tesla's going to 1,000 or even to
no, it's just a
new
trade.
highs.
No,
It
I'm gonna
could.
grab some calls. Yeah.
And I just
You
like
know,
I like to
this
point
is
out
a
to
trade.
people,
This is not a long-term setup. This is a short-term bounce play
it'd be
only.
tough to get Mike in a long-term Tesla.
It's tough to get me in the long-term
But
Tesla.
we love
unless-
Tesla, Elon. We love Tesla. We love you, and we love Tesla. How's
We
that?
do. We're long it right now, Elon, if you're watching. We also, I like to point out,
here was an area, this
Go ahead, Mike.
was it was a technical double bottom setup back in March and April that did trigger off of a pretty key support area. That's the kind of more, I won't call it long term, but more intermediate term,
right,
that we are things we're watching for.
And there's others like
this
I always
is
like
definitely
to
a short-term play.
I like
This
to
could
point
play
out to
in the mouth of
people.
a couple weeks.
I like pointing out to people that in the newsletter, we don't just look at Apple, Google, Meta, Nvidia, although we have done trades in all of those except Apple, I think. I don't think we've had an Apple trade yet. But we also have things like National Fuel and Gas Company that we're currently in. We also hit all three of our targets in a company called Woodward, which is the symbol is WWD. And actually, we can go through that one, Mike, if you remember it.
sure. I have a pairs trade on with Bernstein.
Really?
Woodward. Was it
No,
Woodward and Bernstein?
no,
Oh dear God.
No, yes, Mike. That's not a bad joke.
that's a horrible
I'd
joke.
give it a
Yeah.
C plus B minus.
So we actually got in this one. I'm going to get the exact date here by looking at when the Monday would be. It would have
I see
been,
exactly why. I took out all those highs right at the time where the moving averages were crossing. I love it.
and we got in that one toward the middle of October. No, it was actually late October. I'm sorry. And we moved the stop up and we got in that one and basically hit all three targets over the last, I don't know, probably, well, we hit the first target right away, which was October 23rd. We got in this one on Monday, October 20th. And we didn't
Right.
get stopped out on any of the subsequent moves to the downside because we always have, we use our stops in the newsletter. We use technical stops. We don't just make them up. We don't just say we don't want to lose this much money, so our stop's going there. We get the stops off the charts and we operate on closes below, not just trades below. And actually, Mike, if you look at October 22nd, the low on that one was 247.40 and the low was 247.11 and our stop was a close below 247.20. So we actually dipped below it and then closed above it and then went off to the first target the very next day and then continued to rally. And then we got our last target just a few days back. So we don't just look at things like Google. We've done some Intel trades. We've done some Microsoft trades, but we also have things again like NFG, like UI, which we're in this week.
Love it.
Like Woodward, we don't just look at your typical stocks.
Mike,
and
I'm
I
going to
go
play
through.
a quick version of the Newlywed Game with Karnak. I have here written the answer that I think you'll give to this question. What exactly does Woodward do?
What does Woodward do? It's producer manufacturing industrial
Shit.
machinery.
The right answer for a technical analyst is who cares?
No, you asked what they do.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean I'm going to pay attention to that.
I know. Moving right along.
Yeah, so that's something I just wanted to point out here. So let's go to silver now.
We're all over the place.
Yeah, we're everywhere. We got everything covered. We don't
I
know.
told you I had too much caffeine. You expect me not to be all over the place?
My next, we're trading right at the end of this upward sloping channel, which was a key target. We're very overbought again, potentially cycle tops coming in. There's a key harmonic just above $60 that I'm paying attention to. Should we spike up there? Now is not the time from my perspective to chasing silver. There's been plenty of other good opportunities to get in, especially you watch, as we point out in gold, keep an eye on the 8 EMA on the weekly basis. And I'll show you again when we pull before this last run up, when we get very overextended from the 8 EMA, we can reconnect with it rather quickly. This took a couple weeks. Now the 8 EMA is going to keep rising, but silver dropped back into it and then has been hugging it since. Now we're getting very overextended again. This would not be a time to back up the truck for buying silver. I am watching for pullback levels, especially up in this key harmonic area with the top of this channel. Very overbought, cycles at the top. I'm looking for pullback levels. The rising rotation zone, key supports right around 53.50 to 54.
Interesting. So you think for someone like me, who again, you guys know I got a crap ton of silver. Is this a time for puts?
They'd be, if you're going to watch for something on a short-term basis, if we, like tomorrow, were to break below today's low and close below it, that's where I'd look for very short-term things to just offset the pullback. Would it be like, oh, silver's going to crash? No, I'd be setting up something. I mean, the pullback level on the daily is 54. The key area on the weekly is 52. So I wouldn't be putting like puts down at the 40 something range. My area for puts, like if I was going to do a targeted put trade, it would be roughly between the 54 and 52 area.
Got it.
I just look at it
And that
like
would be for short-term hedge only. That's nothing that is going to be carried for weeks. That's like I'd even consider using weekly setups.
Makes sense. Okay.
my honest opinion, you look at like the implied volatility of silver and, it usually sits right around 25 or so, and it's about 39. I don't know if it's ever a bad time to buy puts when you've
But
got a
I'd
run
sell
like
put too.
this.
I'd sell a
But
put too, right?
I'm not the
Yeah,
person to ask if the puts are cheap, you know?
Yeah. No, but I would do put spread so I can,
I do a
if
Sure.
spread.
they're expensive and skewed, then I can maybe even take advantage of that deferred put.
Right.
What'd you say,
I
Mike?
definitely spread this off because of
Yeah.
volatility.
Yeah. Right.
Or, if we start seeing that same topping, you could do something because volatility is higher with selling some calls, some kind of call premium against it, and just look to cover it as it reconnects between that 54 and
That's a
52
great idea. Maybe I
area.
will sell some call premium. Bobby, do
Because
we have time
again,
for one more? And if so, what would it be? Or do you got to go?
No, but I don't have any more that I wanted to look at. So if we're
No, then
missing something you want to
let,
look at, we can do it. Otherwise, I'm good.
no, we can wrap because we have Mike on our Wednesday show, which is going to have 2 more days of data and we'll build on all this. Does that sound cool?
Yeah. We'll have them on
Okay.
our Wednesday show. It'll be Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time on this channel.
This channel, whatever yes. But anyway, thank you to our sponsors, Independence Arc Farms in Arkansas. Talk to Marco to get the best grass-fed, grass-finished beef you will taste. And he also has pork and Wagyu beef. Also, American Gold Exchange. Dana Samuelson runs it. It is time to own physical gold and silver, in my humble opinion. And if you're not a huge bull, by the way, own the silver and then hedge it in the paper market. But our main sponsor is unfilteredinvestor.com with Mike Arnold and Bob Iuorio doing technical analysis, not just for trading, but also for portfolio construction. And they have been red hot. Thank you guys for joining us, Futures Edge. I'm Jim Iuorio. That's Bob Iuorio. That's Mike Arnold.